And now, the Deeper Thinking podcast, where philosophy, psychology, and power collide.
Welcome to the Deeper Thinking podcast. Some things don't disappear, they stay just out of sight, just beneath the surface. Not as memories exactly, but as presence, as feeling, as the quiet return of something that once mattered deeply and still does. We've called this episode The Presence of What's Gone because absence isn't always empty. Sometimes it's full. Sometimes it carries warmth, a voice, a weight in the chest, a whisper of who you were or who someone else helped you become. This is not an elegy. It's not about grief or loss or even longing. It's about what remains, what lingers, what moves through us in unexpected moments while folding laundry, standing still, thinking of nothing. It's about the way memory breathes. Some things don't leave. Not really. They slip behind walls, between thoughts, beneath smells. You think you've forgotten, but there it is again. A shape in the corner of your mind. A presence, but not a person. A memory that didn't ask permission to return. We're told that ghosts belong to the dead, but most of the ones we carry never died at all. They just stopped being part of the present. That's the trick. They linger not in graveyards, but in gestures, in old songs, in that particular time of day when the light hits just right. Ghosts are not interruptions. They are continuations. They are the way memory speaks back. There's something disorienting about how they arrive. Never in order. Never at the right time. A laugh you haven't heard in years, suddenly filling your chest while folding laundry. The way your hand moves, just like hers. You didn't notice before, but now it's unmistakable. That's how they come, not through logic, but through recurrence. Haunting is the way the past asserts itself in the now, a reappearance without introduction. We call it memory, but that word feels too passive, too archival. This is something else. This is memory that walks, memory that knocks, memory that stays just long enough to remind you you're not as alone or as finished as you thought. The ghost isn't the event, it's the echo. It's what remains after meaning has gone quiet. It's the feeling you get when a room still remembers someone, when silence bends around a name you haven't spoken aloud, not supernatural, just deeply, intimately human. It's what happens when a moment insists on mattering. There's no resolution here, just return. Ghosts don't explain themselves, they don't need to. Their presence is their point, their arrival is your reminder, not of death, but of something that still lives somewhere, even if not here, not now. Maybe that's what a haunting really is. Not something lost, but something unfinished. Not a scream, but a whisper. Not a threat, but a question you haven't yet learned how to answer. Something asking, do you remember? And more importantly, what will you do with the remembering? I wasn't doing anything in particular, just somewhere between tasks, somewhere between thoughts. 15 years had passed since I last saw her. And now, half a world away, far from anything familiar, there she was. Not in front of me, not visually, but in a moment so sudden, so complete, I felt her with me. My grandmother, her warmth, her kindness, the way she made me feel safe as a child and seen as an adult. Her quiet toughness folded inside a short, delicate frame. That whisper of wiry white hair, soft and wild all at once. It was the emotion that caught me. A wave, sudden and full. My breath shortened, my throat tightened, the way it does in those few seconds before you cry as a child. But I didn't cry. It wasn't that kind of feeling. And yet the signal was just as strong because it wasn't sadness, it wasn't longing. It was something else entirely. It was love, raw and unfiltered. Not memory, not imagination. Presence. I was completely off guard. And that made it feel even more real. As though everything she ever made me feel, her care, her strength, her stillness, had arrived in the room around me, all at once. I couldn't see her, but I could feel her. And in that moment, my body knew something my mind hadn't yet caught up to. She was here. Not in the past, not in grief, but in me, fully, unmistakably here. We like to think of memory as storage, a tidy archive in the mind. But it's not like that. Memory isn't a vault, it's an atmosphere, a flicker, a system that rewrites itself every time it's opened. Each recall is a recreation, not a retrieval. The past, then, is never stable. It breathes. And because of that, it haunts. Neuroscience tells us that memory is reconstructive, not reproductive. Every time we remember, we alter the memory itself. We blend it with emotion, with present context, with desire or denial. So The things we carry aren't what happened. They're what we've made of what happened. The ghost isn't the event. It's our latest version of the event, wearing a face we recognize, but one that shifts each time it turns. This is why some memories feel more real than the moments that created them, because we've built them again and again, layered them with longing or pain or hope. We don't remember with clarity. We remember with intention, even if we're unaware of it, and that's what makes memory so ghost-like. It's there, it's vivid, but it's also not what it claims to be. A haunting, in the end, is a lie told with honesty. You can't separate memory from emotion. A scent isn't just a scent, it's a portal. A voice isn't just sound, it's a trigger. And when enough of these moments stack up, when enough doorways open at once, the atmosphere shifts. The air thickens, something moves inside you. This is not nostalgia. Nostalgia is curated. Haunting is accidental. We try to control memory. We build timelines, label photos, keep journals. But the most important memories, the ones that shape us, rarely obey structure. They return in dreams, in slips of the tongue, in sudden grief while standing in line at the grocery store. They bypass narrative. They just appear. And maybe that's what ghosts are. Moments we didn't process fully. Moments still looking for a shape to live in. Memory, then, is not passive, it's active. It returns not just to remind, but to reassert. It wants to matter again. It wants to change something in us. That's why it knocks. That's why it stays just long enough for us to feel unsettled, just long enough for us to whisper back, I remember. It doesn't feel like remembering. It feels like presence, like something brushing past you when no one's in the room, a weight in the air, a shift in temperature. Not frightening, but unmistakable. That's what it's like when a memory becomes a haunting. You don't think about it. You feel it. The moment doesn't arrive with language. It arrives with sensation. You're washing dishes and suddenly the sound of a song playing in another room slows your hands. You're not thinking of anything in particular, but the atmosphere thickens. And then you're elsewhere, or elsewhen. It's not a full scene, just a flash. A mood, a presence. You don't need to know where it came from. You just know that something from before is here now without asking. This is the phenomenology of haunting. It doesn't operate on timelines. It lives in triggers, sounds, textures, times of day. The late afternoon light that always feels like waiting. The click of a lighter that echoes in your chest. The smell of rain on pavement after heat. These are not details. They are portals. And sometimes stepping through doesn't feel like stepping back. It feels like being watched by something you used to be. The strange part is how these moments don't come with clear stories. They come with feeling. They make your body remember before your mind can catch up. That's the power of haunting. It's not about what you know. It's about what you can't unfeel. And that's why some memories haunt more than others. Not because of what happened, but because of what never found closure, what was too subtle or too strange or too sacred to fit into language. Those are the ones that return, not with clarity, but with pressure. Not to explain, but to insist. We don't talk about this often. We pretend memory is clean. We act like the past stays put. But the past has texture. It has weather. And sometimes you can feel its storm gathering before you even know whose name it's carrying. That's the thing about haunting. It's not a story you tell. It's a moment you enter. And once inside, you realise it never really left. Some ghosts wear names, others wear faces, but the ones that haunt deepest often arrive without either. They come as the shape of a relationship, the outline of a voice, the memory of being known. Not the person, but what the person meant. How they made you feel, what they mirrored back. And when they're gone, truly gone, or just distant, the absence echoes louder than any presence ever did. Memory, in this sense, is relational. It's not stored in the head. It's stored in the space between people. The way a sentence once made you feel safe, the rhythm of someone's footsteps approaching, the warmth of being chosen, or the ache of being behind, are just things that happened. They're energies we continue to carry long after the source has faded. You think you've moved on, but then you catch yourself talking to them in your head, imagining how they'd respond to this decision, this moment, this version of you. That's the haunting, not of the person, but of the bond, of the emotional architecture you built with someone who no longer lives inside your life, but still lives inside your reactions, your preferences, your voice. Sometimes the ghost isn't even another person. Sometimes it's the self you used to be in their presence, the version of you who was softer or braver or less certain. You miss that self, or you fear them. Either way, they return, not as memories, but as questions. Do you remember who you were when you were loved like that? Do you remember who you became after they left? We don't get to choose which relationships linger. Some stay even when we don't want them to. Others vanish before we're ready. Haunting doesn't ask for permission. It's the mind's way of keeping unfinished connections alive. Not for comfort, always, but for coherence. For sense-making. For survival. To be haunted by a relationship isn't to be broken. It's to be human. It means you were seen. It means you were shaped. And it means some part of you hasn't stopped listening for the echo, even if all that's left is a silence that sounds just like them. There are places that hold memory better than we do. An apartment hallway that always feels like winter. A cafe where the light slants just so, even years after your last conversation there. A city street that doesn't know your name but still calls to you. These places don't forget. They absorb. They archive the emotional weight of what happened within them, and they hum with it long after you've gone. We call it vibe. We call it energy. But what we really mean is residue. The way grief lingers in door frames, the way joy hums off a cracked leather couch, the way a house feels different after the person who gave it its meaning leaves. We don't need to believe in spirits to believe in haunting. Culture is full of ghosts, and most of them were never human to begin with. Think of the way music triggers collective memory. A certain chord progression, and suddenly you're not just remembering, you're feeling with others. This is how cultures haunt themselves, through films, through headlines, through rituals passed down that no one quite understands but everyone still feels. The memory lives on, not because it's taught, but because it's felt. A nation can be haunted, a generation, a family line. Trauma moves like that too, quietly, systemically. You don't have to know what happened 2 generations ago to carry its weight. It shows up in anxieties, in tendencies, in the way your body flinches at particular kinds of silence. This is what inherited haunting looks like. Not ghost stories, but survival patterns wrapped in shadows. Sometimes it's not even about pain. Sometimes the haunting is nostalgic. You step into an old store and feel 11 again, or a smell catches you and the whole afternoon changes shape. Not because you're remembering, but because something remembered you. We think of memory as internal, but it leaks. It embeds itself in streets and sounds and systems. It finds refuge in repetition. It becomes the air around us. And suddenly the ghost isn't behind you, it's around you, in the culture, in the way we speak, in the silence between phrases we all understand, but no one explains. This is how the world remembers, not in words, in atmosphere, in patterns, in places that refuse to forget, even when we try to. Some ghosts don't arrive gently, they bang, they rupture, they throw the past into the room like a breaking glass. These are the memories we tried to bury, the ones we thought we could silence through avoidance, distraction, logic. But repression doesn't dissolve memory, it distills it. It makes it sharper, stranger, harder to name. There's a reason the things we forget return in dreams. A reason grief resurfaces on a random Tuesday, uninvited. The mind is not a sealed archive. It's porous, it leaks, and the things we try to lock away eventually seep through, sometimes as anxiety, sometimes as tension, sometimes as a sudden rush of emotion we can't quite place. That's the ghost refusing exile. We often think of forgetting as freedom, but forgetting is a weight too, a weight with no name. You carry it not knowing what it is, only that it's heavy, only that it bends your spine when you least expect it. To forget something that mattered is to risk being haunted by the absence of context, by the question that was never answered, by the feeling that never found closure. Repression creates a fertile ground for haunting, because when memory is unacknowledged, it becomes performative. It enacts itself in other ways. In how you flinch when someone raises their voice, in the way you never quite trust calm, in the inexplicable sadness that arrives during the holidays, even when nothing's wrong. These aren't ghosts in the supernatural sense. They're psychic echoes of truths we tried to outrun. The past doesn't demand to be relived, but it does ask to be recognized. And when we refuse, it returns in disguise, louder, more distorted, less kind. This is why people speak of exorcism not just in spiritual terms, but psychological ones. Naming a thing gives it shape. Shape gives it boundary. And sometimes boundary is the only way to soften the haunting. To repress is human, so is being haunted. What matters is what we do when the door creaks open again. When the air shifts and something unspoken re-enters the room, we can close our eyes and hope it fades, or we can turn and look directly at what we buried, not to relive, just to say, I see you now. You don't have to hide anymore. Not every ghost is a warning. Not every haunting is a wound. Some memories return not to hurt us, but to guide us, to remind us of what mattered or what still does. These ghosts don't scream or startle. They arrive softly, as reminders, as gentle nudges toward the person we're still becoming. Sometimes it's a voice you haven't heard in years, rising up just when you need it most, or a feeling in your chest before a big decision, familiar, reassuring, like someone once loved you into being and that love still lingers, offering direction. These are the ghosts we don't fear, the ones that bring warmth, memory as compass, presence as quiet counsel. We talk about closure as though it's always necessary, but what if some memories are meant to stay open? What if some doors shouldn't be locked, only leaned against from time to time, just to feel the weight on the other side? The past doesn't only haunt us through pain. It can haunt through beauty, through meaning we didn't fully understand at the time. And when those meanings return, they can reorient us. To be guided by a ghost is to be accompanied by your own unfinishedness. It means you're still listening to the parts of yourself that haven't gone silent, the parts shaped by people who are gone or far or changed. These ghosts aren't asking to be exorcised, they're asking to be integrated. Not to be forgotten, but to be honoured in the living choices you now make. And maybe that's the real transformation, when haunting becomes legacy, when the feeling that once froze you now moves you, when what once echoed now resonates. The ghost becomes less of an interruption, more of a thread woven through your actions, your ethics, your moments of clarity. This doesn't mean every memory is a gift. Some will always ache, but even ache can teach, even longing can orient. The past isn't trying to trap you, it's trying to converse with you. And if you let it, it might offer more than sorrow. It might offer shape, direction, a sense of what's still possible. So when a ghost returns, don't always brace yourself. Sometimes it's just a voice reminding you of who you are, or who you promised yourself you'd become. Maybe the ghost was never outside of you. Maybe it was something in you all along, waiting for language, for light, for a moment quiet enough to be heard. You began this thinking it was about them, or about loss, or about some other time. But now, here, at the edge of the thought, you realise the haunting has always been a mirror. What if remembering isn't about holding on, but about letting the past reshape the present without reoccupying it? What if a ghost is just time folding in on itself, reminding you that moments don't disappear, they disperse? That presence is more complicated than proximity, and absence is more than just distance. You're not alone in this. Everyone is haunted by what they said, by what they didn't, by the version of themselves they abandoned, by the voice they still hear when everything else goes quiet. It's not pathology, it's architecture. We are made in part by what we carry that isn't here anymore. The unseen has a shape, the inaudible has weight. And so maybe we stop asking how to banish ghosts. Maybe we ask instead, how do we listen better? How do we let the past murmur without mistaking it for command? How do we walk with our memories without letting them steer? The point was never to escape the haunting. The point was to learn how to live inside it with grace. Because what haunts us isn't just pain, it's meaning. Unfinished, persistent, alive in a form that doesn't obey time. And that's not something to run from, that's something to sit with, to name, to thank, to grieve if needed, but also to honour. So you close your eyes and the moment returns again. Not louder, just clearer. You don't need to answer it, just notice it. Let it echo, let it be what it is, a presence without a body, a memory that still matters, a soft reminder that time is never linear, that nothing truly leaves, and that silence sometimes is just the past taking a breath. Until next time.
This episode of the Deeper Thinking podcast was written, produced and researched by Benjamin James. It was read by Holly, a digital narrator. For further reading, resources, and a chance to support the show, visit the episode webpage, where you'll find book recommendations, key topics to explore, and a way to buy me a coffee. And if you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a review on your preferred platform